What's up, everybody? Rob here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Cathie Wood says Bitcoin is going to 500,000. Yeah. I repeat, Cathie Wood from Ark Invest says Bitcoin is going to 500,000. Now, before we go and say that's just ridiculous. What? It's at 27,000 right now, and that's already really high on the year. How is it going to get to 500,000? Well, this is a few years in the future, is what she's saying in her prediction. Before we go and say this is just a wild prediction, let's talk about who Cathie is. The first time I was introduced to Cathie Wood, not literally, but online, was when I would see her interviews with CNBC. And this was earlier this year in 2020 when she started really putting herself out there. And this woman is unshakable. That's what I really respect about her. We're going to talk about her reasons why she thinks Bitcoin could get to 500,000. But I want to give a little bit of a history on how I got introduced to her thesis, in a way, on her investing as a whole. She is known for making wild predictions and then hitting a home run. At least now. Her company, I believe she founded about 5 years ago, so it's somewhat recent. But just home run after home run after home run. If you haven't looked into her track record, I suggest taking a look at it. Back at the beginning of 2020, when everybody was on CNBC, this is back in the days of Jim Chanos coming out of his shell. If you don't know who Jim Chanos is, I suggest looking into that gem. But he was coming out of his shell and talking about, oh, Tesla's going bankrupt, it's going to zero. And there was so much skepticism on Tesla. And here comes sweet Cathie Wood, comes onto the show and goes, oh yeah, they think it's going bankrupt? Really? Yeah, we think Tesla's going to go to 4,000. And everybody on CNBC is like, what? You're serious? And she's like, yeah, 4,000. Tesla's going to 4,000. What happened? And that was her cushion. She gave it a few years. And right now, what do? We multiply Tesla. What's Tesla at right now? Tesla right now, and this is, not even a year into her saying that. Tesla right now is 663 a share. But that was a 5-to-1 stock split. So 663 times 5. We're at 3,315 with Tesla. Now, if you were to say that at the beginning of the year, you would have gotten trolled like Cathie Wood did. Took a lot of courage to go out there and say that. But you want to know what? The contrarian wins. The contrarian wins, especially in that situation. So props to Cathie Wood. That's just a little bit of her background in one of the home runs that she hit this year. But the reason I wanted to bring that up is to give a little bit of credibility to her wild estimates on things. For her to say 500,000 on Bitcoin, it's not just something she said out of thin air. They've done a bunch of research behind this, and I wanted to kind of paint with broad strokes on her points and why I agree or disagree with them. And then add a couple of my points in there as well. So if there is a video to watch all the way through on what could take Bitcoin to these lofty predictions, I think this one will be worth watching all the way through for you. If you find some value here, would really appreciate it if you smash that like button. Really helps my videos get out there. So let's get into this. The first point that Cathie Wood makes for Bitcoin is crypto is its own $700 billion space, right? And now we have fiat currency that is likely hundreds of trillions of dollars. Really, nobody knows exactly how big this fiat currency bubble is due to how much printing has gone on and how many loans have been given out. So let's just say somewhere in the hundreds of trillions. If the dollar is the reserve currency of fiat, then Bitcoin is the reserve currency of crypto. And this is her first main point. The reason I agree so much with this is, this goes into the Peter Schiff argument that I make that makes no sense to me, where they say, well, anybody can come out with another Bitcoin and do the same thing on the same technology. No, because it's first to hit the market, and now the blockchain has become more secure than any other blockchain based on how large it's become. The larger and larger the network becomes and the more adopted it becomes, the more strong the blockchain gets and the more distributed the Bitcoin becomes. So it's a little bit too late, or a lot bit too late. And to go further into detail, the overall market cap of cryptocurrency is around 700 billion, roughly. Bitcoin makes up 500 billion of this market cap. When you really look at the numbers, it really is eye-opening just how dominant Bitcoin is. So for Cathie to say that she thinks the reserve currency of crypto will always be Bitcoin, it's not really an outlandish thing to say. I agree with that. The next thing that's talked about is institutions slowly buying into Bitcoin. This is another point that I really agree with. When you have firms like Grayscale, and you have all these different entities now starting to buy Bitcoin, and now you have billionaires jumping into Bitcoin. You have Michael Saylor from Microsystems rather, putting hundreds of millions of dollars in Bitcoin and publicly being very vocal about this. This is starting a wave. It is like throwing a snowball off a cliff and watching the snowball go downhill and become larger and larger and larger. When you have these big name investors coming out there, you have Chamath Palihapitiya, who is a very big Bitcoin advocate. You have Raoul Pal, who is a very big Bitcoin advocate. You have Michael Saylor coming out there, and now you have Cathie Wood from Ark Invest, all saying the same thing, that they think institutions are going to start buying Bitcoin. And this is not saying the institutions are going to convert all of their cash into Bitcoin like Michael Saylor did with Microsystems. He actually took his cash positions in his company and turned it into Bitcoin in his treasury of his company. To think about that is kind of mind-boggling, because imagine more people do this. The funny thing is, when Cathie Wood says she thinks institutions are going to keep buying Bitcoin, and it is going to, this snowball effect is continuing to grow and it's going to get much larger, it's not very outlandish when you think about it, because this is a conservative estimate. When you talk about emerging markets and you talk about them getting into real estate and everything, the institutions slowly dabble a little bit. They put about 0.5% in, then they get to 1%, maybe 2-3%, and then about a 4-5% position after they've kind of slowly entered. That entrance has already started. When you talk about Cash App putting major amounts of its cash into Bitcoin, when you talk about PayPal going into Bitcoin, this is already happening. These are not small companies. We're talking about huge companies already going in and starting this effect. So that the domino effect is already in play. The domino's already been dropped. So it's not like we're talking about a coin that might come out in 2022 or something. This is a viable coin that is already made, already there, already being adopted. It's kind of mind-boggling to wrap your head around just how fast this could really blow up. And the funny thing is, when I'm referring to Cathie Wood, she talked about this prior to Bitcoin being 20,000. She was talking about it going to 500K in a few years, when it was before it was even 20,000 yet. And now we're sitting at $27,000 Bitcoin. And it's actually kind of holding steady. It's right there between 26 and 27. I think that it continues to hold steady. Let's see where it's at right now. Bitcoin is currently at 26.7 right now as I'm making this video. So you would think that it would have a bit more of a pullback, but it's actually holding pretty steady here. And to get back on that point, it's not a long shot to think that institutions will put 1% of their capital in Bitcoin. It's not a long shot. It's as we're going through this unstable time, there's so much uncertainty with all of this money printing going on, not to mention all the loans that are being given out by the banks right now. The dollar looks very weak. When you look past the smoke and mirrors and the dollar index somehow holding up over 90, which makes no sense to me. It did fall under 90 recently, but the fact that it's holding up and you see the stock market somewhat holding up, people are looking past the smoke and mirrors that are at the top. Billionaires are looking past this. The people that are talking about Bitcoin are far from not intelligent. You know, these are extremely, extremely intelligent individuals. And if you haven't looked into them and you haven't heard Cathie Wood speak, I don't know if I'm allowed to use her clips in my videos, but I'm going to put a link in the description to one of her latest videos where she talks about Bitcoin. And I really think it's worth your while. With that thought that these institutions are going to start putting in some money, it's already happening. The domino effect's already started. The domino's already been kicked over. And not to mention, this is me adding on top of that, that the entry for retail to get into Bitcoin, the bar has dropped tremendously. That's something that I talked about back when Bitcoin was like 10,000, when I made my first video talking about how I disagreed with Peter Schiff. In the last run to 20,000, we had a situation where the intelligence needed to enter the market was up here, and the retail crowd wasn't nearly as informed as they are now. So we're about here on how informed the retail crowd is. Right now, we have the barrier of entry dropped tremendously. So there's not very much intelligence needed to buy Bitcoin. You can just buy it right there on your Cash App. It's very, very simple. And I get nothing for saying that. I'm not endorsing in any way Coinbase or Cash App, and I don't have any links or anywhere to go. Those are the two main places to buy Bitcoin right now. But the entry to get in is super low on the intelligence needed, and the retail is overly informed right now. I mean, this is like the talk of CNBC every single day. All of these billionaires now talking about Bitcoin, putting hundreds of millions of dollars in Bitcoin in their companies. That's another point I want to drive home. So not only is the institution crowd starting to buy into Bitcoin, but the retail crowd it's much easier for them to adopt Bitcoin and to buy Bitcoin. Chamath Palihapitiya also talked about how he believed that it was great schmuck insurance, that if there was a 1% likelihood of this getting adopted, it was worth 1% of your portfolio. That's another investor other than Cathie that they actually are pretty eye to eye. They have very similar investments. They're both bullish on Tesla. They're both bullish on Bitcoin. They have very similar theses on their investing. The last thing that Cathie brings up is the fact that because of these institutions buying and slowly getting in, it's going to become like a trickle effect. And this is kind of elaborating more on that last point. It's becoming this trickle effect where all of the other hedge funds out there and all the other institutions, they will be looked at as foolish if they don't own some of this. So not only do they want to get into it, but they will start could you imagine if you were in charge of a huge hedge fund and Bitcoin is blown up from 3,000 to 27,000 this year, and there were other hedge funds boasting about this on the street, and your fund had no Bitcoin at all? That's what creates this effect and makes more and more of these institutions start getting into Bitcoin. You see Michael Saylor calling out Elon Musk saying, hey, put your cash reserves in Tesla into Bitcoin. It'll be worth trillions in the future, and I will give you my playbook. That was a pretty serious tweet from two very, very serious individuals there. So if Elon Musk takes that advice, could you imagine the wave that would happen if Tesla decided to put their cash into Bitcoin? Could you imagine what that would do? How much notoriety Tesla has, and for all the other companies to see that and go, wait a minute, Cash App put a bunch of their money into Bitcoin and they made a fortune on that choice. Okay, PayPal's starting to get into Bitcoin. Now Tesla is changing their treasury into Bitcoin. What? Michael Saylor already did this and put hundreds of millions of dollars into Bitcoin? Wait a minute, we gotta see what's going on over here. It's happening. Now the last thing I want to talk about, and it makes a lot more sense for the $500,000 prediction, is the market cap of gold right now. So if Bitcoin hit 500,000, the market cap of gold is roughly 8 to 10 trillion. So if Bitcoin gets to 500,000, I believe that's somewhere between 8 and 10 trillion on its market cap. Now, before people think like, oh, that's a long shot for it to get to the same level of gold, that doesn't make any sense. Well, remember, all of this fiat currency out here, all of this huge bubble of fiat currency, it's not back to the gold. So yes, the market cap of gold is 10 trillion, but none of this fiat currency bubble is backed to that 10 trillion. So you have to remember just how big that bubble of fiat currency really is. And if a large quantity of it, if you even say 10% of it starts trickling into Bitcoin, it's not a long shot to think that it would get to a $10 trillion valuation. Now, if that happened, because I want to add a little bit of my points in this video as well, if that did happen, then gold, I don't think would stay at 10 trillion. I think gold might go to 20, 30, 40 trillion while Bitcoin jumps to 10 trillion. I think that, and as Bitcoin continues to go up, and this is why I talked about this in my last video that I did, the reason I disagree so strongly with Peter Schiff and wish that he just embraced Bitcoin as a speculative play and a decentralized asset is this is bringing on so much intelligence to the youth and to just the whole retail audience as a whole on how inflated this fiat currency bubble has become. Let's not forget this was a 50-year test trial from Richard Nixon. This is not like it was always fiat currency in the entire span of us having money. This is a very recent thing, and it's a test trial. And ironically enough, they say currencies get changed every 50 years. So we have Bitcoin now coming as this needle headed for this balloon of fiat currency. And the reason I disagree so strongly with Peter Schiff is because if you are up tremendously on your Bitcoin position, why wouldn't you increase your decentralized portfolio and have some things that you can hold in your hand that are decentralized as well? Why not take some of your Bitcoin and go into collectibles? Why not take some of your Bitcoin and go into art? Why not take some of your Bitcoin and go into gold and silver and rare coins? Why wouldn't you? It would seem foolish to not take some of your gains and put it into other decentralized assets. And as Bitcoin's becoming more and more large on its market cap and growing in size, that's getting the masses of the world more informed here on Bitcoin and more informed on decentralized assets as a whole, which is a major positive for gold and silver and for precious metals. So I don't understand the haste and the anger at Bitcoin. It's like, why? This is great. Why not embrace it? So, I mean, I try not to be that guy being like, I own Mineral Exchange, go to mineralexchange.com and buy your precious metals through me. I know that Peter Schiff owns, I believe it's like Schiff Gold or something like that, but I wouldn't, for Mineral Exchange and being the owner of Mineral Exchange and the spokesman for my company, it's like, why would I bash on Bitcoin? I'm thinking about starting to accept Bitcoin. You know, some of the major players in precious metals are accepting Bitcoin already. I'm working out the logistics to accept it myself. You know, I think that it's a major, major positive for collectibles and decentralized assets as a whole. And that includes gold and silver. That's just my take on it. And that adds into basically Cathie Wood's points and why she sees it getting to 500,000. You know, ironically enough, that is exactly the market cap of gold. You know, I don't see that being a long shot. And I see as Bitcoin rises that the market cap of gold and precious metals as a whole will continue to rise. So to summarize back on her points is if we see cryptocurrency getting adopted as a whole, obviously the money would trickle into the reserve currency. And being in the precious metals industry, we all talk about how if, you know, we go back to precious metals, all of that money will go into, you know, the top players, which is gold and silver. You know, they will funnel that money into gold and silver. That's why I think silver is so undervalued. I also am a big fan of platinum, but that's for another video. I think I'm going to drop that video next, platinum versus gold. So keep on the lookout. If you want to smash that subscribe button and the bell afterwards on the channel, I got a lot of really good content coming out, and I hope that it helps you. That's the ultimate mission of this channel, is to help this word get out. So as ironically enough, as I'm talking about how Bitcoin is informing the masses, channels like mine are informing the masses as well and saying, hey, it's a good idea to get out of the dollar and get into decentralized assets. And I have nothing but respect for Bitcoin. Why would I bash Bitcoin? It's shedding. The precious metal space has so much room to grow, and collectibles as a whole has so much room to grow. Why would I bash on another currency that is helping the decentralized movement? It makes no sense to me. And it also gets you, it's like cutting off. I mean, I have so many clients that are big into Bitcoin. I have so many clients that believe in cryptocurrency and precious metals. So I just don't see cutting off Bitcoin and saying it's a zero. Obviously, it's not a zero. We could sell half, profit, and ride the other half on the house at this point. You know, at this point, it's like get on the wave or get left behind in a sense. You know, it's crazy to say that because it sounds like sometimes it sounds like the wrong thing to do. But if this gets adopted, the upside in Bitcoin is so tremendous that it's one of my favorite investors, in addition to Cathie Wood. And this video is basically going over the points that Cathie Wood makes. They have very similar ways of looking at Bitcoin, obviously, because they're looking at each other's work. But Chamath Palihapitiya is another investor that I really look up to quite a bit. If you have some time to look into his videos here on YouTube, really, really is worth your while. But he had talked about Bitcoin being schmuck insurance, that it's like, okay, well, if you put 1% of your net worth into Bitcoin, it's schmuck insurance. If it plays out, the upside is so big that you would be foolish to not have any Bitcoin. And if you lose 1%, you'll be all right. And guess what? It played out. It played out. And what does this mean is as Bitcoin continues to grow, it's going to eat up everything. So to not have some Bitcoin, if you were another crazy statistic that I'm adding into this as well. I already went over Cathie's main points, but I'm adding in some other points here at the end of the video. With Bitcoin, there are more millionaires in the world than there are full Bitcoins. I repeat, there are more millionaires in the world than there are full Bitcoins. So if you have a full Bitcoin and Bitcoin does get adopted, there are not enough Bitcoins to give one to every millionaire in the world. Kind of a crazy statistic, and it goes to show you if you can afford a full Bitcoin, it's probably a good idea to hang on to that and put it in a hard wallet and put it in cold storage and forget about it for a little while and see what happens here. If anything, just as an insurance play. Just as an insurance play against. It's a hedge against hyperinflation, and it's a hedge into a new currency being adopted worldwide. It would seem foolish to not have a hedge in some way. And this, my channel is all about financial education. This is not to be taken as advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own research, and if you want to be in Bitcoin, that's on you. I'm just giving out education based on my opinion. I have some Bitcoin myself, so I'm letting that be known. I want you to know I do hold Bitcoin, but it's not just the fact that we're thinking, oh, well, this is going to go to the moon. You know, it's all about, like a stock trade into Bitcoin. No, to me, it is an insurance policy. And if there was a 1% likelihood of Bitcoin being adopted, now that we have Cash App and PayPal and Microsystems CEO changing his whole balance sheet and his treasury into Bitcoin, and you have all these billionaires coming out that they are long Bitcoin, and now you have Cathie Wood from Ark Invest saying Bitcoin can go to 500,000. It went from 1% likelihood of being adopted to 10-20% likelihood of being adopted, in my opinion. And as this continues to grow, the likelihood of this getting adopted is only getting more and more likely. That's all that's happening here. I hope I didn't ramble too much, and I hope it gave some good advice for you in this video. Advice, I say this isn't financial advice. No, it's financial education. Sorry, that rolled off the tongue. I hope that it helped you make an educated decision on your behalf. There we go. There we go. I don't edit my videos, so it is what it is. Sometimes I ramble a little bit, but I think that this is information that will really help the masses and will help you all, navigate what the future of money really is. And to the people that think Bitcoin is crazy and outlandish and this $500,000 Bitcoin target is just wild, well, how wild is fiat currency? How wild is that? How wild is the fact that they can just print money at will, and then that money gets multiplied by the Fed, by the commercial banks at 0% interest rates, so there's literally no cap on the loans they can give out. Now that's a crazy system. That's a crazy system. You have all of these commercial banks giving out all of this money, and the FDIC is somehow insuring this money to $250,000. And thinking about all the bankruptcies and all the people that are going to default on their loans right now, it's like, if you want to short Tesla, I think the better idea is shorting, the commercial banks. That would probably be the better idea, in my opinion. So to say Bitcoin is just this crazy internet money and it's fugazi, it doesn't make any sense. What's fiat currency? Do you have a better alternative? I don't see a better alternative. And the last thing I was going to say is the larger this becomes and the more adopted it becomes and the more institutions that start putting this on their balance sheet, that only strengthens the system. It strengthens the blockchain. The larger it becomes, the stronger the network becomes. So it's not like, and this is the argument for Peter Schiff, it's not like somebody can just come out with Bitcoin number 2. It's not going to be as strong of a blockchain. It's not going to be the same adopted system. When you go to Cash App, you can buy Bitcoin there. When you go to PayPal now, you can buy Bitcoin there. Coinbase specializes in Bitcoin. You wouldn't be able just to get some Bitcoin 2 to overnight have a market cap of $500 billion in this kind of adoption. Sometimes it's first to hit the market really just is the winner. You can come out with an auction house, but you're not going to be eBay overnight. There's all these ways to look at it, but I don't see another competitor just coming out and taking Bitcoin off of top spot. When you really consider 700 billion on the market cap and 500 billion of it is taken up by Bitcoin, it's like, good luck. Good luck with that. But anyway, that's the video. Sorry if I rambled a bit. If you did find some valuable information there, please smash that like button. It really does help. And if you want to see my videos, just hit the subscribe button. I know everybody says it, and I really mess up on subscribing on channels myself, but lately I've been getting better about it and clicking other people's, subscribing to other channels as well. It really does help. And if you click the bell afterwards, after clicking subscribe, it will notify you when future videos come out. And if you've noticed on my channel, I don't flip-flop back and forth like the Talking Hands channels here on YouTube. I put my face out there. I put myself out there because I have a thesis and I stick to my thesis. And I hope that if you've watched my videos up until now, that you know I remain consistent. And if I don't, call me out in the comments. Let me know what you think of this video in a comment down below. I always look at comments. If you want to follow me on, I started an Instagram recently. If you want to go to Instagram, just Rob Soltan on Instagram. You can shoot me a DM there, and it is actually me responding. I'm a small player here on YouTube, and I'm a small player there on Instagram, so I do actually respond to all my messages. It actually is me responding to the comments down below. I really do appreciate talking with you all, and it helps bring things to light that I didn't even know, and it helps keep me in check if I say something that somebody disagrees with. I love to hear from you all. Thank you again for watching the video. See you at the next one.